Hello everybody. Hope everybody's staying warm and dry during this unusual inclement weather for the South. I wanted to take a minute just to slow our progress and review just a minute. Let's review for just a minute where we are so far. And I want to take us back to sort of what we looked at in Chapter 1. And start thinking about what you're reading in addition to the questions in preparation for your upcoming exam, and I'll be going over that subsequently, about the first chapter and kind of a framework for our organization of this material here. Remember, in Chapter 1, we covered an overarching technique that the authors provide us for organizing your thoughts about how social theory is oriented. Note that all social thinkers, sociological theorists, or what have you, acknowledge that there's a tension between individual agency and social structure, the patterns and characteristics of these patterns that define constraints, patterns that are bigger than we are, in which individual agency or action takes place. Review this as a sort of XY axis, as you would, remember if you look at Cartesian algebra. The x-axis, in this case, places social action in the orientation or focus of the theorist along this axis. Note that there's no right or wrong. If there are any issues with our first reading in this, some people thought this is an opinion piece. This is not. We're not engaged in a debate about whether it's individual agency or social structure that defines human behavior. It's a matter of our understanding the focus of the theorists that we've reviewed so far. If we're talking about how the economy is organized, for example, or how race or ethnic difference is constructed by the dominant group in society, we're talking about the theorist's focus on social structure. Of course, this does not mean that these theorists with these orientations do not acknowledge the effect of structural inequality on the individual. They're merely focusing on the whole social structure as a determinant of individual orientation. On the other hand, if a theorist is focused on individual agency, as the George Herbert Mead and the symbolic interaction camp is focused, they're not ignoring the fact that there's a larger social structure at play. They have a way of addressing it. It's just not their focus. So let's return to this metaphor, the XY axis that you have in your first chapter. The x-axis addresses the degree to which theorists focus on rational or non-rational behavior. Note that the definition of rational here is not the same as you might employ in everyday conversation. We're not talking about irrational behavior. There's a crucial difference. Think about a reading of Max Weber. He focuses on rationality. Why? Because there's a focus on means and behavior. Bureaucracy emerges in order to most effectively achieve organizational goals. This is not inherently good or bad either, okay? Let's not make value judgments. This rationality can generate alienation, as when, in Weber's words, you feel like a cog in a machine or like you're trapped in an iron cage. Simmel, on the other hand, addresses non-rational behavior. A non-rational orientation focuses on traditional status, whether one belongs to a group with prestige or to a group which is viewed as outsiders, even while living in the midst of the dominant majority group. Max Weber also acknowledges this to some degree, spanning both a rational and non-rational approach depending on what he is focusing on in terms of his subject matter. Again, it's not even, even individual theorists may shift back and forth from these different perspectives, right? Our current review of the theories of the symbolic interactionist founder George Herbert Mead and his contemporaries focuses on a non-rational orientation at the individual level, how we construct meaning in our lives. Keep these characteristics of social theory in mind as we move ahead towards our first test. Please stay warm, dry, and safe, and I will be seeing you online.